morning. Good morning. It is so good to be here together. Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus, Ohio. My name is Deborah Gray Boyd, and I use she, they pronouns. And I am happy to, as of the end, the third time's going to be the charm. We are a covenanted people who believe in beginning again in love, and I am so grateful you are here to begin again this morning with us on our third try. So welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbus, Ohio. My name is Deborah Gray Boyd. I use she, they pronouns. And as of the end of May, I am happy to say that I serve as your former treasurer and former ex officio board member. We are blessed to have so many skilled lay leaders and staff, and I am grateful to have served with all of them, and even yet more grateful to have had folks step forward as I needed to move away from that leadership position due to family concerns. So thank you. I am a white middle-aged woman with shoulder-length-ish brown hair and a light blue top. Our speakers provide brief visual descriptions to welcome those with visual impairments or listening online. We are excited to welcome all of you today. I have two small requests. Please take a moment to put your phone in worship mode, also known as silence. Please move towards the center of your sections so that folks who are coming in have a place to sit, because we want to welcome everyone. For visitors who are here, we invite you to pick up a first-time gift at the welcome table out in the gallery and to join our Getting to Know You folks in Beach Hall after the service to learn more about our congregation and Unitarian Universalism. Come chat with a board member after the service. There is a lot going on at First UU. In fact, the last couple of days, I heard you all were really, really busy. I heard you all were really, really busy doing something called a rummage sale by chance? Normally, as treasurer, I would have spent 2 full days with you, making sure all the cashiers had what they needed and were doing their things. And fortunately, the Phillips and Chris Sullivan stepped forward and took over that job. So, with that said, I still have the opportunity to express gratitude, and I am deeply grateful to this entire congregation for pulling off that rummage sale, and we need to celebrate and acknowledge each other. So, if you were here at any point planning the rummage sale this last week, sorting, organizing, welcoming the things in, please rise and body your spirit or raise a hand. Keep going. If you were here at any point on Friday, did you spend time with your fellow congregants at double time day? On Friday, keep standing. If you were here for the madhouse that was Saturday, because I didn't have to be here to know it was a madhouse on Saturday, please rise and body your spirit. Thanks. Go ahead and have a seat. So thank you to all the volunteers and the staff. Even though I wasn't here, I have the privilege of sharing that all together, with all of your all's help, you raised over $14,000 for the congregation. So well done. And as an all-congregation event, this is an all-congregation weekend. So we did rummage on Friday and Saturday, and you're here for worship now. And after worship, there's this little thing that some of us call the annual meeting. So there is celebratory cake and snacks because we do not believe in unfed Unitarian Universalists coming to a meeting ever. And so please do leave the worship center, get some snacks, and then come back in so we can take quorum. With that said, here are the remainder of my non-made-up ad hoc announcements. Be sure to stay after worship today to participate in our democratic process. Running our church at our annual meeting is immediately following worship. Snacks will be provided and cake as we celebrate 5 years of service for both Amber and Reverend Kelly. Summer is for experimenting and trying new things. Your order of worship and your complete list of announcements, the complete list, not the Deborah abbreviated list, can be found in your Sunday reminder email and also by using the QR code that's around the building. Please read about First UU's participation in the Stonewall Pride March and Festival, our support of FILA, which is the Fund for Immigration Legal Assistance, and our upcoming camping trip, and more. If you aren't signed up for that email, you can take a photo of them or scan the QR code on the screen. In addition to saving paper and allowing our staff to focus on some summer projects, this distributes our current announcements beyond those who are able to come to Sundays. If you need a paper copy, ask one of the greeters at the entrance of the worship center. And thank you for experimenting and trying new things with us. So with that, I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing together hymn 187. It sounds along.
Those are not the right words. If you have access to a gray hymnal, like the old days, and want to open up to 187, some of them are. We're going to try that again. No, you're good. 187. It's okay. Here we go. Get ready, go. It's songs along the ages, soul answering to soul. It kindles on the pages of every Bible scroll. The psalmist heard and sang it, from heart her lips it broke, and tongues out rang
my pronouns are she, her, and I am a white woman in her mid-30s with long, frizzy purple hair, and I'm wearing a pink dress and a Cosmos stole. We gather today on the stolen land of the Wyandotte, Miami, Seneca, Erie, Shawnee, Delaware, and Cayuga people, many of whom were forcibly removed. We support the Native American Indian Center of Central Ohio in their Land Back campaign, and we know that we have more to do to be in true relationship and solidarity with this land and those indigenous to it.
Good morning. I'm the Reverend Dr. Teresa Cooley. It's my privilege to serve as your developmental minister. I'm a white woman in her early 60s with white hair, a green stole, an apricot-colored dress, and I'm happy to be with you this morning. My pronouns are she, her. And before we begin the service officially, there was one really important person that got left off of that thank you for the rummage, and that's Myra Hartman. She worked tirelessly for that project. Now let us enter into the spirit of worship with these words by Karen Johnston. As we gather this morning, let us be a people of not forgetting. Let us practice holding collective memories that might otherwise slip into that enormous void that sucks at and corrodes any future that we hold dear. Let us practice honoring truth-telling up from the past that must come fully into the now, lest we falter and fail, lest the whole remain in pieces. Let not our need for comfort or simplicity, nor easy forgiveness or false pardon, smother the heartbreak that still needs healing. Let us practice resilience with reckoning. Let us marry memory and promise. Let us dance in the tension we find there. Let us rest in the integrity we cultivate there. Let us be partners with the possibility that emerges there. It is good that we gather together. And now, why don't you stand as you're willing and able and greet one another, and maybe say something about what you're excited about this weekend. Okay. It is good to be together. Thank you. It is now time for the children to bring in the light.
We kindle our chalice flame this morning with words from Johnson. Awakening the fire of our ancestors in our hearts, beacon of freedom held out to light the way, light of reason illuminating the path, spark of courage igniting our spirits, aglow with hope for all we endeavor to do together. Holy flame of times past, brighten this present moment, that we may be the love that is our center and foundation both. Blessed be.
All right. Now we're cooking with gas. Thank you, Annie, for your help lighting our chalice this morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Amber Scott, your Director of Religious Exploration, and my pronouns are she, they. I'm a white femme millennial with wild and wonderful wavy hair. Today's story is called Henry Climbs a Mountain, and is based on the true story of Unitarian and Transcendentalist Henry David Thoreau, written and illustrated by D.B. Johnson. Henry wanted to climb a mountain, but he only had one shoe. His other shoe was at the shoemaker's being fixed. I'll get it on my way, he thought. But on his way to the shoemaker's shop, Henry was stopped by Sam the tax collector. Henry, he said, you haven't paid your taxes. Pay a state that lets farmers own slaves? Never, said Henry. You'll have to pay or go to jail, Sam said. Then take me to jail, said Henry. And Sam did. The door slammed shut. Henry lay down on the bed and looked up at the white walls and the white ceiling. He put his bare foot against the wall. I wish I had my other shoe, Henry thought. He took crayons from his pocket and drew a shoe on the white wall. Beside the shoe, he drew a flower with a hummingbird on it. Next, Henry drew the tree the hummingbird lived in. Under the tree, he drew a path that crossed a river and climbed a mountain. Henry got his shoes wet. As he drew up the wall, he sang a song. The bear goes over the mountain, the bear goes over the mountain, the bear goes over the mountain to see what he can see. Henry climbed up waterfalls. He marched in and out of clouds. When it started to rain, Henry pulled his hat down and put on his coat. He drew a hawk soaring in the clouds on the ceiling. At the top of the mountain, Henry met a traveler coming up the other side. He was singing this song. The other side of the mountain, the other side of the mountain, the other side of the mountain will set me free at last. Henry and the travelers sat together on the mountaintop. They talked and laughed and sang more songs. "You have no shoes," said Henry. "Are you walking far?" Far as the star in the north," the traveler said. "That's a long way," said Henry. "Take my shoes." The traveler put on Henry's shoes. He stood and waved. "Thank you, friend," he called. Henry started back down the mountain. The path went down and up and down again over sharp rocks that hurt his feet. He tripped over tree roots and logs in the path. "Ouch," said Henry. Once, he caught his foot in a rabbit hole. Henry rolled down the last hill and splashed across the river. He had not slept all night. The sun was coming up when he stumbled in the small room. Just then, the door opened. It was Sam. "Someone has paid your taxes, Henry," Sam said. "How does it feel to be free?" Henry smiled. "It feels like being on top of a very tall mountain." And he walked to the shoemaker's shop to buy a new pair of shoes. The end. In 1846, Unitarian Henry David Thoreau refused to pay taxes and spent a night in jail in order to protest slavery. His resulting speech on the topic, Civil Disobedience, inspired future nonviolent actions from leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Thoreau also assisted runaway slaves seeking their freedom in Canada. Please remain seated with hands over your hearts as we sing number 396, "I Know This Rose Will Open," to sing our beloved children back to their families and out to class.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open.
During the month of June, our offering plate will benefit Kaleidoscope Youth Center, KYC. Since 1994, KYC has been the largest and longest-standing organization in Ohio solely dedicated to serving and supporting queer youth. KYC is not a part of any one of JAM's focus groups, but it provides a safe space for queer youth in Central Ohio, which has included First UU youth. We also hope to draw on KYC as a resource for learning and to be a more welcoming church for people of all genders. In addition to passing the basket, you can text to give, scan the QR code, or visit firstucolumbus.org/donate. Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you, Nathan. Today's pastoral listener is Pat Snyder, who is right there. If you have something on your mind or heart today, she will be in Beach Hall after the service and will be happy to listen. We have some joys and sorrows from our community to share with you this morning, and there are some caring cards to sign in Beach Hall after worship. First, we send our congratulations to Reverend Teresa Cooley, who will be celebrating the date of her ordination, which took place in 1989 on Tuesday, June 10th. We also want to wish Pat Larson a happy 82nd birthday. We send our healing thoughts and concern to Stuart Raffert. He is currently hospitalized at Riverside while undergoing tests to determine the cause of a bowel blockage. He's out now. He is not longer in the hospital, but we send healing. Thank you. And our deepest thoughts of care and love are with David Moore. He is in hospice at home after battling myelodysplastic syndrome. He and his wife, Martha, have been church members since the 60s. I now welcome us into a time of meditation and prayer. Find a comfortable seat, and if you're comfortable, close your eyes as we take in a deep healing breath together. And out. In the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us, it is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived. We share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion. They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by the vision of what might come to be. Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into the dust and have not disappeared. They are with us still. The lives they lived hold us steady. Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us. We are their voices, their hands, and their hearts. We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living.
be, blessed be, blessed be the living tree. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be the living tree. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be the living tree. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be, blessed the living tree. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be the living tree. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed the living tree. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be the living tree. Blessed be, blessed be, blessed be, blessed the living tree. Blessed be the tree of life. Blessed be the living tree. Blessed be the tree of life. Blessed be the living tree. Steady and true, rooted in love, shelter and peace, below and above. Blessed be the tree of life. Blessed be the living tree. Blessed be the tree of life. Blessed be the living tree. Sing to the sky, rise from the earth. Seasons come round again, death to rebirth. Blessed be the tree of life. Blessed be the living tree. Blessed be the tree of life. Blessed be the living tree. Blessed be the tree of life. Blessed be the living tree. Blessed be the tree of life. Blessed be the living tree.
Nancy MacDonald Ladd writes, exactly 200 years ago this spring, coincidentally on the very same day that the British and Foreign Unitarian Association was chartered an ocean away, that is how it started. So often we discuss history from a safe distance. Our forebears in faith, when mentioned, are referenced with sharp rebuke or vaunted respect, as if all the words they said were written in indelible ink. And everything we are today was somehow predestined by the leadership of those who came before. But the larger truth is both stranger and more comforting, namely that we are not alone in our stumbling efforts toward a liberal and liberatory faith. They were not so perfect either. Their struggles are our struggles. Their story is our story. Their imperfect past is a part of our own evolving future. In our own imperfection and limitation, whether every meeting we plan happens or not, may we be worthy of both their legacy and our living tradition. Please remain seated to sing hymn number 155, Circle Round for Freedom.
for freedom, circle round for peace, for all of us imprisoned, circle for release, circle for the planet, circle for each soul, for the children of our children. Keep the circle whole.
My colleague Nancy McDonald-Ladd, who we just heard from in this reading, penned a fantasy play about the founding of Unitarianism in the latest issue of the UU World. There's a link to it in your order of service if you want to read the whole thing. But her play begins, 44 white men gathered in a rather chilly room in Boston on January 27th, 1825. They've been charged to discuss the practicality and expediency of forming a Unitarian convention or association, to consist of clergymen and laymen to meet annually or oftener. The vibes resemble the average congregational annual meeting. Some of the men have not yet had lunch. Many wonder how long this whole thing will take. The parliamentarian says, resolution the first, it is desirable and expedient that provision should now be made for the future meetings of the Unitarian and liberal Christians generally. Resolution the second, that a committee consisting of 9 members be appointed to consider with what degree of frequency such shall be held and to form a plan upon which they shall be conducted, to report to this body at an adjourned meeting. Hands go up with a kind of half-hearted feeling throughout the gathered company. And the parliamentarian continues, the motion having been made and seconded, discussion may commence. And discussion does, as it often does at annual meetings, with some folks saying things like, you know, I've heard from a lot of people that they don't really like this idea. And other people saying, you know, it's not really good to take anonymous feedback. I've heard from a lot of people, too, that they like this idea. And finally, Andrews Norton, who was the president of Harvard at the time, says, while some have professed that Unitarianism is to be propagated slowly, silently, and without organization, I've heard that both the Quakers and the Methodists have formed organizational structures to promote their respective faiths. Having done so, it seems that neither the Quakers nor the Methodists have fallen entirely into the abyss. Unless united in some way, we Unitarians fail to protect our institutions and organizations like theological schools, including the one that writes my paycheck. Basically, we need to get it together. So the play goes on, and again, you can read it in the order of service or find it in your latest issue of The World. But for now, I'll just note that the meeting failed to bring about its stated purpose. It took 4 more months and a much younger group of ministers to finally get it together. But I imagine that it, too, was pretty boring, and they probably were still hungry. This probably sounds both strange and slightly familiar to many of us who've been in UU congregations for a while. If you stay for our annual meeting today after the service, you may see some of the resemblance. But our meeting will be led by our outgoing board president, Cindy Wicker. And I assure you that the men who gathered in that room in 1825 did not have multicolored hair like Cindy. Much has indeed changed since 1825. And yet, thank God, yes. And yet the ball that got rolling then started something that blossomed into a movement. that created congregations all over the world and a host of free thinkers who have had influence on the world far beyond our congregations. Let's start by recalling what was meant by calling themselves Unitarian. While the Enlightenment had taken hold in Europe for centuries, emphasizing the power of reason, the need for empirical knowledge, resulting in an explosion in science, in art, and literature, America was still dominated by Orthodox Christians who believed that God had damned certain people at the beginning of creation, meaning that they could never be redeemed. They venerated centuries of theology which held the concept of the Trinity as sacrosanct, making Jesus the equal of God, and God the violent enforcer. So, educated people began to rebel against these concepts, particularly those educated at Harvard, which became a hotbed of radical ideas. You wonder why they continue to get targeted. Believing that humankind had the use of reason and could interpret the Bible, in fact, for themselves, which meant that they rejected the idea of the Trinity, which is actually not contained in Scripture. So the Orthodoxy sneered at these rebels, calling them Unitarians as a slur. But in Baltimore in 1819, one of the preeminent ministers of this new gospel, William Ellery Channing, preached a barnstormer of a sermon, claiming the moniker of Unitarianism unabashedly, asserting that the Bible was written by people, and people reading the Bible could interpret it themselves and come to their own conclusions. Channing's God was a loving God, not a punishing one, and Jesus was a human being that could serve as a real role model for living a good and a moral life, not some unattainable being on the throne next to God. This sermon did not settle the issue, but it gave a name and a voice to a growing group who took their congregations out of the standing order and elevated reason and imagination over orthodoxy and thoughtless conformity. So again, soon this group realized that they might need an organization, which, typical of Unitarians, only complicated rather than simplified things. But finally, in late May of 1825, they settled on establishing at least a publishing arm which would promulgate their liberal ideas. And liberal ideas began to proliferate in even more radical directions. So let me pause for a moment and go back to Channing. Channing was raised by strict and distant parents, resulting in a serious and intellectual young man who earned a Harvard degree at the age of 15. His father died young, leaving Channing with a need to make a living. So he took a job as a tutor for a slaveholding family in Virginia. His experiences there would leave him with a lifelong abhorrence of slavery and a stricken soul who worried constantly about his own sin and failings. But he finally had an epiphany of a loving God, which propelled him into the ministry and back into the Harvard intelligentsia. As minister of the prominent Federal Street Church, later called Arlington Street Church, he was venerated as one of the greatest minds of his day. But his health was broken by his early battles with depression and abstinence, and he was unable to fulfill many of his ministerial duties. He continued to carry forth his strong support of the anti-slavery movement to the point that he resigned from his position when the leadership of the church refused to support that. He died at 62, but left a legacy, not just of intellectual achievements, but also being an early supporter of many liberal social justice endeavors. I tell his story because it's easy to focus on the words and miss the person's experience that brought about a courageous advocacy for human capacity and freedom of thought. It was the marrying of reason and experience that propelled the Unitarian movement almost immediately into not just a rejection of orthodoxy, but a questioning of the Bible itself and an emphasis on the individual's capacity over and against that of society. This was the Transcendentalist movement, which venerated nature as much as it did reason. The Transcendentalists, probably most well-known, Ralph Waldo Emerson, decried corpse-cold Unitarianism and urged a full exploration of spiritual thought beyond Christianity and a radical self-reliance. So while Emerson and Thoreau, the subject of our story this morning, are probably among the most well-known of the Transcendentalists, I want to tell you the story of Margaret Fuller, whose story really exemplifies where religious free thought can take people. Fuller grew up in this early 19th century Unitarianism and had the benefit of a father who wanted to give his daughter the education he knew that she would be denied. So she was reading at 3, translating Latin at 6, absorbing her father's massively extensive curriculum of science and philosophy and literature like a sponge. Now, as one might imagine, this did not make her a very popular little girl, given that she was smarter than most of the adults in the room, but it promoted in her a confidence in her own abilities, regardless of her gender. She became the editor of The Dial, the Transcendentalist magazine, which included her own writings as well as the other luminaries. But she tired of the male-dominated discourse and instituted a series of conversations to which she invited women to explore philosophy and literature in ways that they typically were denied. All of her other positions as editor and teacher were unpaid. So she charged the astonishing sum of $10 for admission to her conversations, which finally let her earn her own living and become independent. She wrote the first feminist manifesto, Women in the 19th Century, which didn't just advocate for political and academic freedom for women, it also questioned the nature of gender itself, arguing that all people had a mixture of feminine and masculine qualities. And this, amazingly, became an instant bestseller in America and abroad. During a tour of Europe, she was celebrated for her achievements, but also became radicalized to democratic movements and joined the Italian uprising, which advocated for independent republics, and met an Italian count, 10 years her junior, whom she may or may not have married. They had a child together, but the French put down the Roman rebellion, and so they decided to decamp back to America. Sadly, the ship on which she sailed foundered and broke just miles from the shore, and she and her family drowned. I cannot possibly do service to the full spectrum of 200 years of Unitarian people and strains of thought, but I want to tell one last story of a 20th century Unitarian, James Luther Adams. Adams was a minister and professor of theology who traveled to Germany in the 1930s to learn from the preeminent theologians there. And there he encountered the horror of the Third Reich, which made him question how liberal religion could respond to the totalitarian threat. He put it this way: "What is it in my preaching and my political action that would stop this? It is a liberal attitude to say that we keep ourselves informed and read the best papers on these matters and perhaps join a voluntary association now and then. But to be involved with other people costs. And so that one exposes the evils of society requires something like conversion, something more than an attitude. It requires a sense that there is something wrong and I must be different from the way that I have been. Even after World War II saw the vanquishing of Nazism, he lectured a group of occupational soldiers who were, in his words, engaging in an orgy of self-righteousness on confronting their own racism and anti-Semitism. He returned to an academic career in America and lectured widely on his experiences, including coming to this fledgling congregation in Columbus, Ohio, in the late 1940s. He often chided religious liberals for their laxity in purpose, saying that the trouble with being a Unitarian is that you can't flunk. Instead of complacency, he advocated for sacrifice and discipline and the need to speak not just about one's own beliefs, but about one's commitments. He would say, an unexamined faith is not worth having, for it can be true only by accident. Authentic faith is an examined, self-critical faith. I had the immense pleasure of getting to know Adams, or JLA, as we affectionately knew him when I was a young student at Harvard back in 1989 when I was ordained. He was a gentle soul, but you always knew that he would hold you to account for your actions or inactions. So many more than just these three people contributed to what we understand as Unitarianism and now Unitarian Universalism today. Women and men who stood on the forefront of the causes of justice and freedom. And it must be said that there were just as many who failed to live up to this standard. For every outspoken abolitionist, there were multiples of apologists and deniers of the harm of slavery. For every outstanding woman leader and minister, there were also decades of refusal to honor and support their ministry. Black ministers were often discouraged from pursuing our faith. And Unitarian intellectual leaders perverted the gospel of the celebration of human achievement into an advocacy for imperialism and eugenics. But even amidst these failures, we have emerged as a movement that still celebrates and demands religious freedom. Early misogyny took a back seat while women became the majority of our ministers. In the 1990s, homophobia was confronted and the great majority of congregations became welcoming to the LGBTQ+ community. The president of the UUA, Bill Sinkford, was the first minister to preside over a legal lesbian wedding at the UUA headquarters. Our ministry today looks vastly different than that gathering of white men 2 centuries ago, with trans and gender nonconforming and ministers of color now making up a significant portion of our colleagues. We remain far from perfect, but this heritage of the freedom of religious thought and the belief in the inherent worth and dignity of each person has led us to a place where we know we must confront the authoritarianism that is once again manifest in this country. Back in 1819, Channing said, "Say what we may, God has given us a rational nature and will call us to account for it. We may let it sleep, but we do so at our peril." The affirmation of the wild diversity of human experience, the call to live an examined faith, the courage to live our lives out loud, even in the face of those who would trample upon us, is the legacy which we have been given. Let us be worthy of it. Amen. Our final hymn is Let Freedom Span Both East and West, number 148 in your gray hymnal.
Let freedom span both east and west, and of both south and north, in universal fellowship throughout the whole wide earth. In beauty, wonder everywhere, let us communion find. Compassion be the golden cord, close binding humankind. Beyond all barriers of race, of color, caste, or creed, let us, like friendship, human worth, our common faith and deed. Then east and west will meet and share, and south shall build with north, one human commonwealth of good throughout the whole wide earth.
Please take the hand of someone close to you or place your hand over your heart as I share these words by Peter Rabel. We warm ourselves by fires we did not light. We sit in the shade of trees that we did not plant. We drink from wells we did not dig. We profit from persons we did not know. We are ever bound in community. Together we are more than any one person could be. Together we can build across the generations. Together we can renew our hope and faith in the life that is yet to unfold. Together we can heed the call to a ministry of care and justice. We are ever bound in community. May it always be so. And let us extinguish our chalice together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of vision. As we go forth, let us heal and transform ourselves and our world through reason and love.
When